There is a phrase that I really have disliked for most of my life. You've probably heard it. It's called fake it until you make it. And perhaps more appropriately in the finance sector, fake it until you believe it. And unfortunately then the rest of the world found out, and that crass saying is not used as much anymore. You know, I think given the state of the economy, perhaps honesty is the best policy would be a better phrase to replace that. But that's the truth, isn't it? Honesty is always a much better way to go. And in the real estate profession, it's very important that as realtors, we give you our honest opinion of what we believe the market is doing and try and advise you on what is, at the end of the day, going to be one of the biggest investments you'll ever make. And so we take that seriously. The good thing is we don't need to fake it until we make it in the Okanagan. Recently, I was on the CMHC website. And the good news is that they just brought out their quarterly forecast, which is great news for us, actually. It's their third quarter housing market outlook, and I want to read you some of the important information from here. Not surprisingly, BC as a province is pulling back a little bit. It's regressing from its position last year, and that's largely due to the retrenching of the Vancouver marketplace, although there's some very buoyant sectors in Vancouver. By and large, you're seeing that the market has softened there quite considerably, and that's pulling back some of the rest of BC. But the good news is that the Okanagan continues to separate itself a little bit from some of the other parts of the province. You can find those stats at CMHC's website, www.cmhc.com. They're publicly available. You can subscribe to their reports as they release them. You'll have the opportunity to be some of the first people to read them as the media starts to evaluate them. The good news is that from a sales activity point of view, Kelowna is well ahead of the rest of the province, which is great for all of us. That's good news. From a pricing point of view, I think we're sitting in second place as a region within British Columbia. But we have good reason to be optimistic, and that comes from their forecast of what they expect to be happening over the next little while. There are, in fact, bullish predictions for housing values and also for the pace of sales. And I believe part of that reason is that we are all expecting Alberta to return to the Okanagan marketplace. Certainly this year, as I've talked about, tourism has been down a little bit in the Okanagan, at least as I've spoken to other tourism operators. But I believe that we've seen more Albertans coming back for vacations, and that's just an indication that over time they're going to be coming back and looking for real estate. And this is a beautiful playground for them. Yes, sure, I know they have to drive past the Columbia Valley and they have to get through Sicamous, that left turn off the Trans-Canada Highway. But when they do get here, they find more service and a less cramped lifestyle than they would do, for example, in the Columbia Valley, which is now a very, very busy lake with a lot of houses around it. And so we're blessed with this very, very large lake, which on almost any given day, you can count the number of boats on one stretch of the lake on two hands. And so I would predict that we will see the return of the Albertan buyer next year. We've already seen an increase in appetite coming out of the Lower Mainland, which is great news. And I think CMHC is agreeing with my thoughts that next year we're going to see a continued increase in the pace of sales, not necessarily the price of sales, but the pace of sales. And that's what we need to see. We need to see in this recovering market the fact that the absorption rates are increasing, and what will follow is steady appreciation within the housing sector. And that's great news. Housing continues to be a good place to invest in the Canadian economy and will be into the future, I believe. Interestingly, I just scanned some of the real estate forums in the area, and the people who are active 4 or 5 years ago talking about the economy going to crash and the housing sector going to correct itself and drop to some ridiculous level. They disappeared for 3 years, and I guess they've been quiet enough now that they decided it's time to come back. And so those same predictions are on the amateur forums, the amateur real estate forums, and they continue to have no basis the way they did a few years ago, in actual fact. I would say there's no reason to be overly bullish, but there is good reason to be cautiously optimistic, which is what I've always said in all of the columns that I write and the videos that we do. So enjoy doing all your research, hook up with your local realtor and ask them to do a little bit of legwork for you and find out where you can make the next sensible either cash flow or asset investment in the Okanagan.